What it do, comic babies? I'm Bunkmaster B, and today is Valentine's Day. Not technically today, but the day that this is going up. I'm filming this in the past. Now it's Valentine's Day. It's a whole weird time travel thing. But I'm using today to talk about one of my absolute favorite books of all time. And that right here is Craig Thompson's Blankets. I loved this book so much. I have talked a ton about this. And this book means a lot of different things to me personally. Last year for Valentine's Day, I was going to write an article on Comics Are Dope about how this book, and I'll uncover Craig and Raina, how this book was about the best relationship in comics. And I was going to do a whole thing. Like, I did a reread of this. I took notes. I took screen captures. I mean, I treated it like a college essay. And what I really came down to it when I tried to write that article is this book means so much to me that at least at that point, I couldn't write a coherent article. I had so many different thoughts that were all trying to go out at the same time. I had so many different angles that I wanted to take this. I had so many different things that I wanted to unpack with it that when I tried to write a coherent article, it just didn't happen. And what I'm hoping right now I can do instead is I can just do sort of an off-the-cuff talk about this book, where maybe if I'm not trying to have any kind of structure or anything like that, I can just talk about why this book means so much to me, why I think this is such a beautiful book, and why I think this book is the best book about relationships in comics. So, maybe I'll be able to do it. Maybe this is going to be a whole bunch of hot garbage. But either way, let's check it out.
All right, so a little look behind the curtain on this one. So the same way that I tried to write an article for Comics Are Dope last Valentine's Day about this book and about how it was Craig and Raina were the best relationship in comics, I already did this video. I filmed me talking about it, and it wasn't good. But so Blankets right here, it's a graphic novel by Craig Thompson, and it's a memoir about his time growing up and really about the relationships that defined his life. And so one of the central ones that goes with that is, as you can see on the cover, his romantic relationship that he has with this girl, Raina. But if we open the book up and we get past all of the praise, and it deserves all of that, it doesn't open with Raina. The first relationship that we actually see here is Craig's relationship with his brother, Phil. And we see them together and basically just trying to tough out childhood. And then from there, we get introduced to his relationship with his parents, and particularly his dad. And you know, like any kid, the dad is drawn as this really overbearing figure. He's kind of drawn larger than life when he's coming in. And then kind of the first introduction we see with that there is the kids being split up and Phil being sort of put into a dark space. And this kind of ties in to the next relationship that we get introduced with Craig, which ends up being his relationship with God. Craig grows up in a very religious community in rural Wisconsin, and you can see, you know, he's talking about God. And as a kid, you know, he takes what he's taught at face value, and you know, God is really sort of his most important relationship. And through this book, we see sort of the evolution of his different relationships, the different weight that he puts on them, what's really important. And then flash forward. I mean, you can see we're doing a decent chunk right here before we get to Craig's meeting of Raina. And this is what I kind of think of as everybody's, where everybody starts with this book. It's certainly where I did. You know, the first time that I read this, I was transported right back into high school. I thought about, the relationship I had with my main high school girlfriend. In fact, actually, after reading this book, I reached out to her. We're still cool. We're on good terms. And I was like, hey, read this book because I want to talk about it with you. And a lot of the sort of pull quotes that you see right here, they talk about that experience, about how it'll take you right back to, your first love and things like that. And that's totally true, and that's totally there. By the way, if you can't tell from here, Craig Thompson's style is beautiful. He has this very kind of cartoonist style, but he's got a very flowing style that he goes through, and it's very representational at times. And then other times he mixes in this beautiful religious imagery into just kind of these secular settings, and it really works. Just this beautiful composition of black and white. There's no color in this. But anyway, again, this book, and even though it takes a while before Raina is introduced, his relationship with her kind of takes up the majority of this book, as I think is kind of typical when you're in your teenage years. And on rereads that I've done on this, I picked up on different things, and one of them is just like Craig and Raina sound so much like teenagers in the sense that they are so self-assured. As they're going, they're talking about their plans and their lives together, and they just sort of know everything. And the adults, who are going through the motions, Raina's parents are going through a divorce. They're working these dead-end jobs that are barely paying any money, and they're not artistically fulfilled. And it's one of those, we're never going to be like our parents. And it's kind of the same way that every teenager feels. I know I definitely felt that way. Again, that same high school girlfriend. I remember we were talking about like what our lives were going to be like together, and there wasn't a question that we were going to end up together. And then sometimes things don't end up that way. And you see through this book, again, this evolution of relationships. This romantic relationship that he has with Raina is just one relationship in his life. And at this point, this sort of slice of life that the book takes place in, it is the most important relationship at that point. But this book is all about our shifting relationship. So we open up, and it's his relationship with Phil that's the most important. And it's his relationship with God. And just as this goes on, we see just how everything changes with that. And that's what I think the beauty of this book is. It just, on its surface level, it's a beautiful story about a teenage relationship. And then the sort of more you read into it, the more you sort of dive into the text, you get to see more. And it's a book about relationships, period. And it's a history of Craig through the major relationships in his life and how they kind of ebb and flow. I love this book. I think this is absolutely beautiful. And I'm much happier with the words that I'm saying about it this time. But I mean, still, there are no amount of words that can do this book justice. When I was trying to write my article, I was taking notes, I was trying to just capture a few thoughts and quotes that I wanted to use. And I ended up, filling a notebook with all these quotes and citations and all of these really meaningful moments that I wanted to capture. And I felt like I was back in college because there was so much that this book had, so many lines, that were indicative of the different themes that they had, that I had way too much. And that's such a credit to this book. And I cannot highly recommend enough that if this sounds even remotely interesting to you, even if it's not the kind of thing that you typically read, if any of this hasn't resonated with you at all, I cannot recommend enough. Go check out this book. You don't even need to buy it. I guarantee you that your library system has at least a copy. I mean, this is one of those crossover books. If you look at the pull quotes, on the front page, on the back, you've got Neil Gaiman, you've got Joss Whedon, you've got the New York Times book review. There's a whole bunch of pull quotes in here. Like this is one of those crossover books that everybody loves, even if it's a reviewer who sort of puts their nose up at graphic novels. This is one that this is the exception. Cannot recommend this enough. Please do yourself a favor. If you haven't read this book, go out and do so. If you have, what do you think of it? Am I barking up the wrong tree? Am I giving this too much credit? Also, what's your vote for best relationship in comics? Again, with the article I was going to write about this being the best relationship in comics, it was going to be kind of tongue-in-cheek. It was about the nature of relationships itself. But there's still, honestly, so much beauty in the romantic relationship that's captured with Craig and Raina that I still think this is the most beautiful relationship in comics. If you've got a different one, please let me know in the comments. But until then, I've been Bunkmaster B. You guys have been great. Stay awesome.